Hey, welcome to the Cyber Savvy Woman, where women business owners reclaim their power in the digital world. We shatter the myth that cybersecurity is too complex to master and transform protection strategies into clear, actionable guidance. This is your digital empowerment sanctuary, where cyber fear becomes cyber confidence. Whether you're protecting client trust as a therapist or safeguarding financial data as an advisor, you'll hear from women founders who've conquered digital challenges and security experts who speak your language. Every woman leading a business deserves to feel unshakable in her digital decisions, no matter her technical background. Are you ready to stop letting cybersecurity intimidate you and start letting it elevate you? Here's your host, Rachele Schainker.
Welcome back to the Cyber Savvy Woman, where we talk about practical ways women can protect themselves, their businesses, and their futures in this increasingly digital world. I'm your host, Rachele Schainker, a Silicon Valley technologist and owner of the award-winning managed service provider, CMIT Solutions of San Mateo. Today, our guest is Ben Berry, Chief Operating Officer of Maradi Newfer, a leading family law firm located here in the Bay Area and in Southern California. Ben oversees the firm's operations, finance, talent, and technology, and he has a very real take on vendor pitches, legal tech gaps, and what it means to protect highly sensitive client data. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by shiny tools, this episode is your permission slip to focus on systems first. Ben, welcome to the show.
So glad to be here.
Yeah, so as I shared, you're a COO of a very fast-growing family law firm. How did your journey, how did that transform from like global transformation programs to legal operations? How did that evolve?
I think that in many cases, as our career unfolds, it informs how we want to work and where we want to work, right? And so I was very fortunate to work at some very large organizations, having worked at Baker McKenzie, very large, very prestigious law firm, and also large organizations like PwC and MetLife. And so I had that experience working in these large organizations. And at this point in my life, I was like, I feel like I need to have a bit more connection to my life outside of work. And working at a large organization like Baker McKenzie, which is global, it's hard to maintain that connection because you're working global hours, right? And so I really wanted to make sure that I could work for an organization that, number one, where I could be more present for my life outside of work, but also I wanted to work with people that wanted to do good in the world, right? And that was one of the most important things. And so I really feel that Maradi Newfer is a firm that believes in doing good and really helping clients through some really challenging moments, whether it's a divorce or an adoption or surrogacy. Like, these are tough things to navigate. And so having like people who really care about it's important, right? And then I think the other thing is about I wanted to know everybody.
Yeah. Right.
Working at a place that has 13,000 people versus a place that has 25 people, it's very different. And so knowing everybody really means a lot.
Yeah, no, I love that. I had a similar track. I worked, Nike, Fisher, very large global. And while I loved that experience and I loved being part of it, now just really focusing on small businesses and community, it is very fulfilling. So I totally understand that and can relate.
For sure.
Share with us kind of what a typical day looks like, when you're balancing all of those, financial, talent, technology decisions for the firm. How do you manage your schedule? How do you manage your time?
I think that's one of the things I love about the job is I don't get to have a typical day. Like being across so many different things, you get to be exposed to something new every single day, right? And so sometimes it's going to be like, okay, small businesses, we have to get invoices out. And that takes a lot of work. And so because many of those solutions are built for really large organizations that are sending out thousands of invoices, and so a firm of our size sending out 200, like it's not the same type of solution that you can get, right? And so coming up with those ways of doing it and then just navigating those moments, it could be something like that. I think that for me, I guess a typical day is always going to be taking a moment at the beginning of the day to see what's on deck, right? And so I think that that's really important. I think that it's I mentioned early in my career when I was actually working at the Environmental Protection Agency. he it was really clear to me. He was working at a very large global finance firm before joining the EPA, and he had retired. He just said, "I don't like retirement very much. I want to go and do something good." And he joined the EPA, and he said, "Ben, if there's one thing I can tell you for your career is like you need to have some feet on the desk time, right?" And so for me, that feet on the desk time is first thing. It's like what's on deck, what needs to happen today, what are the projects that are going right now that are kind of steady going out through multiple weeks or months versus what needs to happen today, and where do I need to carve out time for certain things that I know that might emerge, right? And making sure that I have space in my day to handle the unexpected, but also to be present for others, because I think that that's really important for me. Is that I want to be connected with everybody, and I want to have that time with the team. And so if I book my time up solid, I don't get to have that. If I'm not flexible to being able to adjust to what the team needs, it means that I don't get to have that bright spot in my day of connecting with them, right? So that's usually like the first thing is like taking stock, having some thinking time, planning out my day, understanding what's necessary. And then, I think what's really interesting is like I had a boss several jobs ago who had banned um, meetings entirely within the organization, to the point where like literally I could not walk next door to the next office and sit down with a colleague to talk through something.
Mm. Challenging.
Like you would come over and say, "Is this a meeting?" and so I got the intent of it. The execution was a little draconian, but like one thing I have learned is that like meetings need to have purpose, and so I do try and avoid having meetings blocked out throughout the day. Like at a big organization like Nike or Baker's or whatever, like it's a status of how blocked your schedule is, right? And I feel like my status more is like how open can I keep it?
Yes, I love that. Yeah.
How can I make it less blocked with meetings? And so that's been very helpful for me. It's like I know that I'm trying to keep it to a minimum of like the maximum of like 5 or 6 meetings a day, usually less, and that keeps space.
Yeah. I think I do something similar, but I'm more the night before. It's kind of how I end my day, is to look at what is on deck for tomorrow. Because I swear when I sleep, my brain ruminates. So if I can have it like have a game plan for the next day, I just feel it feels better for me, and that wasn't intentional. It just kind of happened, but it's been working. Yeah. So I agree with you. And then my other one is I rarely book like an hour. It's either like 30. Most things can be resolved in 15 minutes or 30 minutes. No more of these like hour calls, but yeah. No, I appreciate that. Let's talk a little bit about, cybersecurity and family law. You know, as a family law practice, you have extensively, a lot of sensitive client data. How does your firm think about cybersecurity and privacy when evaluating technology? Share with me kind of like your thought process on that, how you built your tech stack.
It's at the core, right? So yes, when you're navigating some of the things I was describing before, like a divorce, for example, there's a lot of detailed personal information that's shared, and if you're not taking care of that, it can be disastrous, right?
Mhm.
And, we've heard of other firms in the space that have been impacted by malware or ransomware. And it is just, number one, it's not only disruptive towards your business, but it also breaches trust, right? And so, and you need to trust your family law attorney. Like they're dealing with some such sensitive things. It's like, if you don't think that they're caring for your information properly, it's a fast way of losing business, right? And so, we're very hyper vigilant about it, right? And so that comes down to our managed service providers that support us, but it's also the tools that we use. And so like we're willing to spend a little bit more on tools
Yep. Yep. Yes.
that have the proper security measures, because more than maybe some other firms or some other businesses might do, because they undervalue the importance of that tool in terms of your stack. That is important, the most important thing for us. Like in our tech stack, if it doesn't have those security standards, it's not like it's going to be. I'd rather have pay now than pay later, and much higher, right?
100%. That's what's so shocking to me is that, again, coming from corporate where, it was just standard to have very high security, it's just how you operated. And now I'm, pivoting towards the small businesses, and they really, some are resistant about investing. And it's just like, such a small amount compared to what could happen. It's like, it's interesting, helping them kind of get over that hurdle and understanding why investing up front is going to be so much less than down the road. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's simple things like I think so. Having worked at major organizations that have that standard, like everything has to be SOC 2. Like how many small business providers have SOC 2? But like, hey, like we have one vendor right now. Well, like right at the beginning, there's like we're SOC 2 compliant. I'm like, hey, okay, now we can talk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And like, yes, I know I'm paying a little bit more for that solution happily, right? Like, because again, that's detailed personal information for our clients, and I'm glad to pay it. Now, that said, even in large organizations, they can get vendors that are compliant, and that have really strong security credentials. But if you don't back it up with actually training your team to use it properly and to actually have that due diligence, it can be easily thwarted, right? And so, like, that's the other thing that's nice about being at a small firm is like I don't have the headache of a CTO out there where like I've got thousands of employees to get in some, please don't click on that link. I can be much more hands-on and be like, yes, this is an example. And like we just did a test of our team and so many people checked in with me like, Ben, I got this email about from Slacks
Yeah. Yeah.
to check into register my account. I'm like, are we doing Slack now? I was like, no, we're not. Yes, you've been fished.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. My husband works at a global consulting firm, and they take it so seriously. Like if you fail that, like you're out. Like, it's not like you go back to training. It's like you get 2 tries, and if you can't identify. But kudos to you for creating that environment where you are taking security seriously, and that your teammates feel comfortable enough to go to you and be like, hey, this looks odd, what should I do? Because that's what you want to create, is a security mindful organization where people know what to do, know who to ask. So kudos to you. I love that.
The nice thing is also working with attorneys. Their job is to look at risks, right? They look at risks in a different space, and so all you have to do is say like, "Here's another set of risks that for you to consider," and they're like, "Oh, they're completely on board," and so it's helpful.
Yeah. Some are not though.
Fair, fair. Yeah.
You would think, but anyway, that's another topic. But share with me what you feel about the legal industry. Do you feel like the legal industry is behind when it comes to adopting secure and modern technology, or is your experience been that most of the time they are open to it?
No, I'd say in general, the industry is probably behind, right? I think that there's a number of different reasons for it. I think it depends on what part of the legal industry you're talking about, right? So number one, it's very different for the majors, like the huge ones versus the mid-market versus the small market, right? And I think it's also because there's different solutions that are out there for each. And like, for example, I was talking with a group that was setting up an enterprise level collections platform, right? And and they were just at the beginning, and they're like, "What is some advice that you give us to get started?" And I was like, "Start with the small legal firms and grow from there because we're hungry for it, right? And we can make decisions faster. If you've built a good tool, we can make a decision faster because there's fewer checks. It's like I don't. It's not like you have to talk to procurement and this person, that person, the other person. Like in order to buy."
Yeah. And then get to legal.
Exactly. It's like it's the sales cycle for a major firm is going to be a year and a half to 2 years, versus a small firm. It's going to be like I think it was 3 meetings. I was able to make a decision on one of my more recent purchases. So like that's one of the things that I wish there was more of. I wish there was more firms that don't see the huge dollar signs of the large firms and kind of come down to us because we're underserved, in my opinion. I think the small firms are underserved. I think that we have a couple of biggies that kind of are making their bread and butter off of small firms, like the Clios of the world, right? But this is ripe for more entrants, for more people to go. Like since we're so underserved and people aren't always listening to what our needs are, that's a problem, right?
Yeah. Are you being approached by AI vendors?
all the time.
Yeah, and kind of what's your position on that? Or how are you vetting them? Are you looking at them, or are you kind of keeping them at a stiff arm?
I think it depends on the application. Yeah, I think that like there are certain things that like there have been enough mistakes that attorneys have made where they've trusted AI implicitly and submitted something to a court and gotten sanctioned for it that, there's a lot of hesitance within the legal space to actually feeling comfortable um, going feet first into AI, right? That said, we do feel that, again, if we're ignoring it is going to cause problems for us. We have to know it's there. I'd say that there's two ways that we're interacting with it. The first is basically how we're using it for our business, and the second is how our clients using it, right? Because that's a new factor that many law firms are experiencing, and it's really challenging in many respects, right? So taking the like how our firm's using it, I think our firm is using it in a way to kind of aid and get started on something, right? So, for example, if we get a huge amount of e-discovery, like we have tools that will allow us to go through that e-discovery and kind of just get a sense of what's in there, right? But we will not let it do the e-discovery for us, right? So like that's helpful, right? Like it gets us like when you're dealing with like hundreds of documents that are many pages long, like that's helpful, just like, hey, what do I got here? Is it like, where should I start looking, right? Um, and it makes the task feel less overwhelming.
Daunting. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Um, I'd say the bigger challenge that I personally have, and I think our attorneys are having increasingly, is that many clients are using AI on their cases to double check the work of the attorneys, right? And, hey, we're a firm that says like an informed client is an excellent client. We can do more with an informed client that understands the different things that we have to do to advocate for their needs. Um, and we want them to use tools, right? But we also want them to be informed users, right?
Yeah, right.
And so we always give every single new client a welcome package that includes like, hey, if you're going to use AI, please consider this. And things that are included like, hey, you like the AI only knows what you tell it, right? So if you're going to ask it to put together a settlement offer,
That's crazy. Yeah.
like you better provide a whole lot of information, right? But that said, AI is not, it can be discoverable, right? And so if you're putting information into that, like in somebody's subpoenas, chat to like, OpenAI or whatever, like then your stuff is out there. And so just know that if you're going to put something out there, you can't really put a lot of information because it could be a risk to your case. And if you do put more information in there, know that like it's not going to be a complete answer because you're not able to put as much information into it as the attorneys have, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love how you're getting ahead of that. That's really very smart. First time I've heard of that. So I will share that with my other law firms. I'm like, oh, maybe you should, because I do we help them like with their AI acceptable use policy, and making sure that, but I hadn't thought about that before of like how to talk about how your clients are using it. So I appreciate that. Let's talk about operational systems for a minute. What would you say is the biggest impact on your firm's growth and efficiency um, as far as operations?
I think that the biggest impact are things that are kind of bread and butter for our firm. It's timekeeping and billing. Those are the two things for law firms that are make or break for everybody. And I think that there's everybody under the sun has their own timekeeping like silver bullet. And I just don't think that there is a silver bullet. I think that there's always gonna be a combination of technology, training and monitoring, right? And I think it's having the right balance between all three. And I think that you're never going to the balance is always going to be shifting, right? And so you always have to kind of be mindful of that and sensitive to what's happening. So for example, we just introduced a new timekeeping tool, right? And I've talked with our team quite a bit since then. We're almost 2 months into using it. It uses AI. Okay. And so this is one of our applications of AI where like this makes a lot of sense to us because it's able to kind of take number one, it anticipates if you're working on something, it can read and say like, okay, this belongs to this matter, this client, right? And can group things together better than anything else that I've seen, right? That's a first thing that's really helpful. The second thing that's really helpful is it drafts a narrative for the attorney, and it does a good job of drafting that narrative, right? And then the third thing is that it's making sure that even small things are picked up, right? And so there's certain things where like an attorney might just have forgotten, hey, I just sent that email, right? So all these things, like, so from a technology standpoint, it really helps kind of just, it's a catch-all for getting things. That said, it created a lot of work for our attorneys. And so a third of our attorneys loved it and said, right from the start, said like, this is brilliant. This is going to save me so much time. I'm so in love with this tool, right? A third of our attorneys on the other end of the spectrum saying like, I hate this. What the hell are you doing to me? And then everybody else is in between and saying like, okay, I can see some value. I'm still annoyed by it, right?
Right.
And so it's partly about being sensitive to the fact that, like, yes, I'm forcing you to do something and to use something that is not your favorite, right? And still like persisting and saying like, I need you to use this because number one, it's AI and it's learning, right? And so if you're not using it, it's not going to learn you. It's never going to get better, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, do you think the group that is struggling or middle, do you think it's training, or do you think it's more of them, like, changing their own internal processes? Is that, like, where do you think, like, that resistance is?
I think it's a couple different things. I think that, yes, I think that attorneys often develop habits that are the most efficient for them at a certain point in their career, but then they persist, right? And changing those habits, like attorneys are change averse. I think most people are extremely change averse.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Change management is such an interesting, science to me. Yeah.
For sure, for sure. And so, like, I think that asking somebody to do something new when they've got something that works for them, is very hard, right? And so it's partly kind of being open to hearing like, why do you think that this works? And what would cause you to consider something different, right? And then creating the environment to make them open to it, right? And then also acknowledging when that environment isn't perfect, right? And so, like, this tool is super fantastic. I love it. It's definitely helping our firm. It is not perfect, right? And even they're saying that we know that we're not perfect. We're still early in our journey, right? And we're learning from you. And so, like, it's about having an open communication with that vendor and giving them that information so they can grow with us, and that we can, like, how often is a firm of our size going to be able to influence a product like this, right? So we're going to take this opportunity and run with it, right? And so part of that is meaning that, yeah, I'm going to ask you guys to be uncomfortable for a few months as you're learning to use it. And I'm going to acknowledge that you're uncomfortable, and I'm going to make accommodations for that discomfort. And that again maintains the relationships and trust, right? While still getting the benefit of trying something new, right?
Yeah. No, I appreciate you sharing that, because a lot of times people will talk about, oh, we just implemented it and it's all great. So I appreciate you being real about the parity of how it's working and not working. But I wish you luck. I'm thinking great thoughts.
Thank you.
You'll get everybody on board. You know, so what would you say is, the biggest mistake you see in small firms, when they are adopting a new technology, and what could they be doing different, to, to ensure that it is a robust, adoption?
Yeah, this is easy. Not enough planning and preparation. I think that they, like, in general, most firms don't have somebody on their team that is dedicated towards implementing new technology, right? And so somebody like if they have a partner like your team, that knows how to do this, really knowing when to pull that team in and treat them like an extension of your own, and give them enough information to be your advocate, right? And also spend the money, because like when you're making these changes, like it can be the difference between something actually working or just basically being a waste of money and time, right? Because like if you don't do the proper prep, and planning at the start to adopt it and to kind of know what's going to happen within the group and the firm to make it work, you're going to run into it. It's just going to be a waste of everybody's time. Like I can see, like, if we hadn't done a proper prep for like when we changed our phone system, right? We did a whole bunch of preparation for that. When we implemented this timekeeping system, we did a whole bunch of prep for that. And like we did lots of training, we did lots of check-ins. We're still doing it, right? Because if we don't, it's a waste of money. Like at some point, like we've spent like thousands and thousands of dollars on these solutions, and then people either don't adopt them, and so you're spending money for nothing, or even worse, it's causing problems to your business and you're losing money, right? And like if our phone systems don't work, like we clients can't contact us or new clients can't contact us. Like it's like if we had done that, like if we'd switched over and people couldn't call us, like imagine like every day we're getting like many people calling us for help. And it's like all of a sudden we don't have leads.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that is very critical. I commend you again for shifting your phone providers. That is a heavy lift, for sure. You've been described as someone who empowers teams to make decisions. How do you build that kind of culture?
That's probably the hardest question you're going to ask me.
Sorry. Sorry.
That's a gnarly one.
Or what's a tidbit, I mean, I appreciate that because a lot of times, there is that kind of, power can be stuck at the top. And I think it's really important that everyone needs to feel like they can make those decisions and, they have that autonomy. So, what's a starting point to build that culture? Maybe that's a better way of asking.
I think the starting point is knowing that you're not a rock star in every single thing in the world, right? I think that in many cases, especially in our culture, it's like to become an executive is the be all end all of everything. Like everybody's like, go for the next rung in the ladder, reach for that brass ring. And in the process, you kind of have to fake it to make it. Like early in your career, you have to fake that confidence. And then all of a sudden that you get convinced of that confidence. And then you're in love with your own brand, right? And so as a result, like you're not actually looking at, hey, where am I struggling? Where do I have challenges as a leader? Where do I have challenges in terms of supporting my team and being a part of a team? Right. And so I think it's partly like being open and wanting to figure out where you might not be the strongest, right? And being transparent and vulnerable with your team about that. I think vulnerability is something where like people throw that word around a lot, and I don't want to be one of the people that just throws it around. I really want to kind of underline it and saying like, hey, like it's scary. It's scary as heck to say like into my team, like, I'm not good at this, because they rely on me for a lot of things and they don't like not everybody likes to hear from their leader like, yeah, I kind of suck at this. Like I suck at doing.
It also makes you human, it brings that human element of like, hey, he's a super smart guy and he knows all this, but he's not perfect, right? And it's like that is a gift because a lot of times, top lead, people at the top, don't present themselves that way.
For sure. No, like there's this kind of archetypical, like, I am the intrepid leader and you will follow my lead, and if you follow my lead, everything will be great. And I think there's no guarantee of that because honestly, we're human beings are social creatures. We do everything as a community. And so if we don't do it as a community, bad things happen. And so I think for me, like number one, in my role, at least if I'm sharing that, other people feel comfortable doing that too, right? And so if we all know where we have challenges, if we're all kind of transparent about where we are in different things, we can all support each other in different ways, right? And so I think that that's the first part. And I think the second part is like, it's okay to fail, like when you make mistakes. I think that I implemented something early on at Rodney Newfer, and I did not go as I expected. And I rolled it back. And I was like, yep, I got that one wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
There was like, well, thank you for listening to us because we're telling you got it wrong. I was like, yep, nope, thank you. You made it loud and clear that I did not get this one right.
Right, right, right.
you know? And so it's okay to get things wrong. And so again, having that permission to make mistakes, I think that early on in my career, when I was at MetLife, our team gave everybody I forget it was at the beginning of the project. It might have been a little ways into the project. We gave everybody get out of jail free cards from Monopoly. Like we got a whole bunch of copies of that and we just gave everybody 2 of them. And so we basically said, no matter what you do, no matter how bad the thing that you just did is, just hand this in, right? And it gave it lifted people out of this fear because especially like insurance is similar to law, like there's a lot of people feel risk, and they're afraid of making a mistake. And so lifting that pressure it helped that project so immensely, because that was a complex project that had so many people working on it. If we hadn't done that, we never would have gotten through it. We needed people to know that, yes, you can break something, we'll figure out a way to fix it, right? And it's not like move fast, break things kind of thing. It's not. It's like, no, like mistakes happen. Okay, we have to be generous and say like, yep, I might have made that mistake too. Yeah, so like, yes, you get a pass. Let's now work together to fix it, right?
No, I love that. I love that. So if a growing business owner is, feeling overwhelmed by all these tech tools and vendor pitches and AI options out there, how should they think about choosing systems that actually support their operations and protect their client data instead of just adding more chaos? What is kind of a, you know, top level framework, or, how do they kind of evaluate their most current need or most urgent need, I guess?
Sure. I guess the first thing to do is understand, do you have the skills and ability to make that assessment yourself, or somebody in your team have that assessment? If you do, then you go to step two. If you do not, then you go to a different path. You basically you get the help.
Yes, there you go. Yeah. No, I love that.
You know what I mean? And I think that's the hardest thing for a business owner to realize is like, hey, I need help, right? And like, um, and some businesses might want to make the investment, like Kiana made the investment in me, right? Like she decided we need a chief operating officer. Like how many family law firms have COOs? Not a lot, but she made the decision saying like, I need somebody with the expertise, and the network to be able to do these types of assessments, right? And and so I have that skill and I can do it. So we have it internally now, right? But if we didn't, it's trusting your vendors. If you find the right vendor who will walk in your shoes, does care about your success, and will give you good advice, right? And know that you can give them all the information and trust them with that information, because if you don't give them enough, they won't be able to make an honest recommendation, right? But if you do have that, like if you have that person in place, or if you have that vendor in place that can do it with you, then it's about number one, really being careful of understanding what is the goal, like always beginning with the end in mind and saying like, this is in the end, this is what we want to have happen, right? And then doing your assessment of vendors and saying which ones could actually meet that end state vision, right? And then automatically discarding the ones, even if there's everybody's got a great pitch, we'll give you a huge discount, or we'll throw in all these extra bells and whistles, like we'll give you a CRM too, like whatever the case may be, and like knowing that.
I don't even. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, I don't need that from you. Like, all I need to do is this thing. So it's like being focused on what you need and not being distracted by all the other things, and making sure that you're getting the actual end state thing you need. Hey, if you get that plus some other things, super. But if you're not getting that minimum thing that you needed to begin with, then don't listen to those extra sales pitches, right? And then the last thing is like making sure that you implement it well. Like we talked about that already, but like all the front end work of doing your assessment, like having the expertise to do the assessment, doing a thorough assessment, it's all wasted if you don't implement it well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so smart. I love it. So towards the end of our podcast, we do a quick little rapid fire where I'm going to ask you a question and you're just going to tell me what, comes to top of mind.
Sure. All right.
So what is your favorite productivity tool today?
Favorite productivity tool. Kiana would be mad at me saying this on a podcast, but I'm saying like Teams, like I'd probably be happier with Slack, but like I do feel that, that flow of communication is important. So I think that having the right communications tools is probably the most important thing.
Yeah. And what is one tech tool that your firm cannot live without? What is everyone using?
That would probably be a practice management system. And every law firm lives and dies with a practice management system. Yeah.
Yeah. And is there a technology trend that kind of excites you, or what are you looking for on the horizon?
As I was telling you before, the time capture tool that we're using, I'm super excited about it. I'll give them a plug right now. Point one, like I'm very, very excited to see what they're going to be able to do, and I think that it's going to be a great tool. I think that where it is right now is awesome. I think it's got nowhere to go but up. I think it's going to be I think it's going to change the legal space for sure.
No, that's so great. Ben, thank you so much for joining us. I really loved how you shared a blueprint with us. We don't necessarily need more apps. We need, better systems, better requirements gathering, better support on the other side, because the right technology, it doesn't add noise. It creates clarity, consistency, and confidence, especially when you're handling sensitive data and high stakes work. If today's conversation made you rethink how you evaluate tools, please share this episode with a fellow business owner who's drowning in tech decisions. And if you want, please check out the show notes for more information about Ben and his law firm that he works at. They will definitely take care of you in California. I don't know. Are you guys national or just California?
It's California.
Just California. Okay, excellent. I'm Rachel, and this is the Cyber Savvy Woman podcast, where we help you protect what you're building and scale with confidence. See you next time. Ben, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Glad to be here. Bye.
The Cyber Savvy Woman podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Hey, thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode.